So Liverpool are back in action at 12:30 p.m. on Saturday, despite having a Champions League game on Wednesday evening. Of course, they travel away from home to face Crystal Palace. And as ever, I've been hearing from Arne Slot here at the AXA Training Centre about that match and all things Liverpool. And I think the best place to start, the place I usually start, is with the team news. Now, of course, the big question mark is around Federico Chiesa. He did miss that game against Bologna with an unspecified injury. The manager didn't really go into details, and he suggested that it was touch and go really for whether he'd be involved against Palace. Now, we have had an update. I asked this right at the end of the press conference in terms of what are the chances that we'll see Federico Chiesa involved, and the manager said that he hasn't trained for the last 2 days, which is a bit of a blow, but he's come in today and he is hopeful of being involved in that training session that should happen around midday. Then it's up to Slot, he says, to decide whether he's going to use him or not. Obviously, he's got a few fit players. He's got other players he can select in that squad. And if he doesn't quite think that Federico Chiesa is ready for this one, it'd be a risk to involve him, then he'll just sit it out. And of course, we will then see him after the international break. So we're going to have to see how that one plays out, but encouraging at least that he's back in training today, or hopeful of being so. Suggests it's only really a minor injury, and that, you know, even if we don't see him at Crystal Palace, it will be the other side of the international break, which I'm sure Liverpool fans are looking forward to, because everybody wants to see a little bit more of him. And to be honest, it's only in terms of injuries now. I feel like when I was doing these videos last year, it was basically, some of them were titled 8 injury updates, 7 injury updates, 9 injury updates. A little bit different at the moment. Liverpool not doing too badly on the injury front, touch wood. If Chiesa were to miss Crystal Palace, it would still only be him and Harvey Elliott, who is still out with that foot injury, who'd be missing. So they haven't made a bad start to the season in terms of injuries, and long may that continue, because I think it is a vital factor this season that Liverpool do have fewer injuries, and I think it will help them stay in the title race longer if they are able to do that. Now, moving on from the team news, I'll have to talk about the contracts. It gets asked in every single press conference, doesn't it? What's happening with Trent Alexander-Arnold? What's happening with Van Dijk? What's happening with Mohamed Salah? Now, of course, needed to ask again today, because there has been that speculation about Trent Alexander-Arnold. Reports from Spain suggesting that he is moving towards Real Madrid. He's been turning down or ignoring Liverpool's offers, and Real Madrid are poised to make a move for him and have been talking to the player. Now, of course, on that basis, Slot was asked again, but he was, as ever, really sort of didn't want to give anything away about it. He was laughing about the fact he was even asked and said, look, it's the same boring answer from me. Try again, maybe after the international break, and we'll see where we're up to there. So unfortunately, no update on those contracts. But I will say, my understanding that I don't think anything is really progressed with Trent Alexander-Arnold. I don't believe, I don't quite buy into some of those reports from Spain that Real Madrid are making a move and that he's decided to reject Liverpool. I don't think any decisions along those lines have been made, and Liverpool, I do know, are very keen to keep hold of him and tie him down to a new long-term contract. So still massive hope there for Liverpool fans that one will get sorted, and we'll see how it plays out. Now, another thing that Arne Slot was asked about today, and I did allude to it in the intro, is the fact it is a 12:30 kickoff away from home after a midweek fixture. Liverpool seem to get an awful lot of these. They get definitely more than any other Premier League team in recent years, and he was asked about how difficult that is and tricky, and he did say, look, his experiences from managing in Holland is that they are slightly more helpful in the scheduling of games. Say a team has had a European fixture in midweek, they maybe wouldn't give them this early kickoff. That makes it a little bit more tricky. But he says, he also acknowledges that, look, in England, you've got the demands of the TV who pay so much money and are so influential in football, and also the fact the schedule is a lot more tight. Of course, we do have the League Cup here in England. There's a lot of other countries don't have an equivalent to that, so that clogs things up further. Then, of course, there are more Champions League games now. FA Cup, league games are really busy, and of course the Premier League has 38 games, whereas some leagues like Holland have 34, so it does make a difference and it makes it more difficult. But in terms of the actual challenge of playing at 12:30, we've often heard about that, haven't we, that players are having to eat pasta at 9 o'clock in the morning, and that's tricky. But Arne Slot kind of disagreed with that, actually. I thought it was really interesting. He said, if 12:30 was a difficult time to perform, then I am a stupid manager, because I train every day at midday. So sounds to me really like Slot is saying, look, there are no excuses here. You know, we can't come into this and say, oh well, it's a 12:30, we're not going to be at our best, it's too difficult, maybe Crystal Palace will get the win. He wants to go there and say that, look, we can perform at 12:30, that you know, we train at that time, why wouldn't we be ready for this challenge? So I thought that was a really interesting approach. I do wonder And I think this is the big question for me coming into this game against Crystal Palace. Will he rotate for this one? We've seen very little rotation from the manager so far, but going from Wednesday evening to a 12:30 away from home, Palace can be a difficult place to go. Atmosphere is always fantastic there, and I know they've made a poor start to the season, but I still think they've got such quality and a very good manager who knows how to set them up, as we saw at Anfield last season when Crystal Palace got that win that effectively ended Liverpool's title charge. So very interested to see whether he makes a few more tweaks to his starting lineup just to add a little bit more energy in there and ensure that Liverpool are as sharp as they can be, because I think they're going to have to play very well to beat Crystal Palace. As I say, always a difficult place to go. Now, moving on from that, one of the final points I want to kind of talk about is that Darwin Nunez is something he was asked about. Now, I wrote about Darwin Nunez on my Substack. That's free to read, actually, if you guys want to check that out. The link is in the description of this in the description of this video, where I was quite critical, I have to say, of his performance, and you will have heard actually my post-match piece that I did on YouTube. I was quite critical of his performance against Bologna. 4 out of 12 passes completed, and I just didn't think he had a very good influence on the game. I did get a bit of stick actually on social media for writing that. Do let me know in the comments how you feel about Darwin and where he's up to at the moment. But he was asked about him and his form generally this season, and I thought he was really kind of interesting on this, actually, is that he said that, you know, we as a team have got to find ways of putting him in scoring positions more often if we can, of getting more out of him. And he said it's not just about Darwin Nunez. He said Diogo Jota really hasn't been prolific this season. We haven't given him loads of opportunities when he's played that centre forward role, and neither of them is really kind of playing out of the skin at the moment. And I thought that was a fair comment, to be honest. And he also, in the quote was, it's maybe something to look at the moment, that you know, are we getting the best out of our centre forwards? Is the way that we're getting them into position actually getting the best out of them? Obviously the wingers are scoring quite prolifically, he said, and maybe that's an interesting tweak we can make, where we can level the goals out a little bit more and find, you know, the centre forwards aren't just having to do all the donkey work to get the wingers in. Can we make it so that we can get more out of our centre forwards? So clearly something he's thinking about. He doesn't believe that Darwin Nunez is playing well, apparently, and clearly thinks he can get more out of Diogo Jota as well. So I thought that was really interesting, and maybe we'll see some sort of tweaks in the way Liverpool build up, the way they attack, that will try to get more out of those centre forwards, because I think it is something that would be important. We want to see more from Jota. Definitely want to see more from Darwin Nunez with the struggles he's had at Liverpool. So fascinating really to see if Slot can come up with any tactical solutions to that. Now I'm going to leave it there. That's the talking points from the press conference. Do let me know how you're feeling about this game at Crystal Palace. Let's have your score predictions, your team predictions. How do you think Slot is going to approach this in terms of rotation maybe? Always interested to hear what you guys think. And as ever, if you can give me a like on the video, that always helps get it out there. And if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. Coverage of every match, coverage of every press conference, and everything in between. Some loads of interesting talking points to come up and go through during the international break as well, including, you know, let's have a look at how Liverpool has started under Arne Slot, and hopefully there will be another win added into his record. Hopefully that comes against Crystal Palace, and I will see you after the game for the full match review. So I'll see you guys then.